Hello everyone, welcome to Woomam TV. Today we have a very interesting woman with us. She is Vandana Saxena Poria. She was born and brought up in England, and I really have a whole list of her achievements right here. She is basically doing everything very excellently. She is a serial entrepreneur, charter member of TIE Pune. Very interesting. She is of course a well-known speaker, as we all know, director of UK India Business Council, author of novel, which we'll talk more about, and she has been awarded OBE, which was with the hands of Queen in England. Interesting.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for coming, and wow, what a journey. How did it really begin for you?
So, I was born in England, and I was brought up over there, and it was quite tough having Indian parents but living in England. Yes. There was a lot of confusion in our minds as kids growing up. But one thing I found was it didn't matter who I talked to, they may seem really different, but in their hearts they were the same. So I became kind of very passionate about talking to different people, yes, understanding where they came from, understanding what was similar about them. And I think that was, how my journey began. It was just by talking to different people.
That has been your passion.
And that has been my passion, yeah.
Great. Were there any challenges, Vandana? Because I believe the culture there and culture here is really different. Mm-hmm. So now that you've moved back here with your little children, so what is it that you're facing? Is there anything you would like to mention?
So, probably to start with saying that I saw so many different, or I've been through so many different struggles over my life. The first one was dealing with racism as a kid, dealing with parents who were very broad-minded but very Indian, and having like an Indian household and having a British household. So I started off with that kind of struggle. But what I realised and what I learned to do was take the best out of each of them. And I learned how to diffuse situations. What I learned when I looked at people who were racist was a lot of the time it was some kind of insecurity in them. They were being prejudiced towards me because they felt that I was going to take something that was rightfully theirs. And when I
That's where it starts.
That's where it starts. It's all through an insecurity. The problem isn't me. The problem is with them and their perception of who I am. So as soon as I dissolve that perception of who I am, things start to alter. And again, throughout my life, that's what I've done. When I've lived in different countries, even when I moved to India, I remember, you'll laugh at this, Shweta, but my mother said to me, I was expecting my second child, Zara, 13 years ago. And I said, I'm going to have the baby in India. And she was like, no, please have the baby in England. And I said, why? And she said, well, hygiene and health issues and all of that. And I said, Mum, there's 1 billion people in India. They know more about childbirth in India than they do in the UK.
Yes.
Think about how many babies are born in India as compared to the UK. So I said, if anything, it's going to be much safer because they know what they're doing. So after that, and I said, anyway, you were born there, come on. So then, I moved here, and it was really important to me that I had Zara here because I felt if I couldn't trust this country, my country, with the birth of my child, how would I ever be able to trust my country?
Something to really note.
Yeah, so that was one real struggle that I think other people had rather than myself. The other thing that I have faced, Shweta, over the years, I wouldn't call it gender bias. I would call it respect bias. So a lot of women will say it's a gender bias issue. Yeah. I would say it's not a gender bias issue, it's a respect bias. For some reason, men don't respect women in the same way as they respect men.
Interesting, yes.
So I have found this throughout my life. I found this in Pune. I found this, across India, but across other parts of the world as well. In India, it's much more pronounced. In the West, we talk about male privilege. What I would say is in India, it's not even privilege, it's male prevalence. It's like, it's very difficult for women to be able to to speak up. And it's changing in the multinational companies. I think it's very different. But in the Indian companies, when I was running my business, and they knew I was based in Pune, and I'd go and visit a national company, and I would have the CEO say to me, "Who's looking after your children?" And I'd be like, "My maid," and then they'd be very disappointed, and then I'd say, "My mother." Oh, that's okay then. But they would never ask the men, "Who's looking after your children?" You know, so why is that question being, and they're making a judgment on me and my ability to work based on that. And so
your skills as a mum.
And my skills as a mother. And my skill, you know, if I didn't care about my kids because I've left them on their own, then how would I care about their business? I mean, completely separate things, but they would bring them together. So that has been very tough, and I've had to do a lot of education, and I found it easier to deal with multinational companies as a result.
So is there any contradictory life a work woman lives, because she has so much of respect and equality she experiences at a workplace, and when she's back home after 8 or 7 in the evening, she's suddenly a bahu and a Indian woman sort of.
I found this challenge.
It's very difficult to adjust to that life.
Absolutely. And the thing is, for someone like me who's very outspoken, it's not that difficult to adjust. But for somebody who's grown up totally in Indian surroundings, it is really tough. And you know what I'd say? What I'd say to the mums out there, and to the ones who haven't yet become mums or got married yet, you have to have these discussions, and you have to say. I mean, I have to say, I'm divorced now, but my ex-mother-in-law was supportive of me working, and I said to her that, you know, how can I have children and you expect these children to have total respect when they see me being subservient to everyone? Yeah. They're going to learn that.
Learn the same.
And I don't want them to learn that. So it can't be do as I say. It's got to be do as I do. And it's got to be do as all of us do. And so over time, the conversations changed. My mother was a great support. When my kids were 3 and 5 and I would be traveling for work, my mum would show them pictures of me saying, "Look, mummy's doing really important work. See, she's gone here, she's gone there. She's gone to meet a minister. She's gone to the UK." And so my kids were brought up with this pride that their mummy works. Whereas other kids in their class, well, mummy's, working. I didn't see mummy very much last night. And they'd be miserable. And my kids would be, "Oh, so proud of mummy. She's doing this and that." So I think that's very important to do, is that
the conditioning.
Every day, do a little bit of conditioning.
True that. Beautiful. So we would love to know about your work areas. You are doing an interesting work with Dai Pune.
Yeah.
So what exactly goes into that?
So I struggled as an entrepreneur. I first went into entrepreneurship when I was 26, when I left a very secure job with an accountancy firm called Ernst & Young to set up a training company in Eastern Europe. Okay. And I did it because I was 26 and I thought, well, if it doesn't work, I can always go back. And I did set up that business, and the business became very, very successful very quickly because I spoke Romanian, I knew lots of people there, and we got bought out by a listed company. So entrepreneurship at that time was fantastic. Then the listed company asked me to open an international division where I had to move countries. And literally overnight, I went from knowing everyone to knowing no one, to not knowing the culture. I moved from Romania to Poland, not knowing the culture, not knowing the language, not knowing the nuances of business. And it was a nightmare. And I didn't have anyone that I could talk to at that time. And I muddled my way through, and I met people, and I worked out who I could go to for advice and who I could give advice to. And over the years, I made a commitment to myself that wherever I could, I would give back. I would support others. And that's why I got involved with the British Chamber of Commerce in Hungary or Poland. It's why I opened the British Business Group in Pune.
Is it?
Yeah, so I set that up many years ago, a decade ago, to try and encourage trade between UK and Pune.
Because people interesting. We're thankful to you.
Thank you. And that's why I got the OBE from the Queen.
Which is equivalent to Padma Shri in India.
Yeah, that's right. So That was great. But then with Thai, I found a real home because here were absolutely amazing entrepreneurs like you, Shweta. I mean, what you're doing, I think for women is fantastic, right? But a lot of the time we have these great ideas. I'm not talking about you here. I'm just talking in general about entrepreneurs. We have these great ideas, but we're not really sure how do we grow it? How do we, what's my vision? How am I going to get there? How do I fight my competition? How do I do social media? And Thai, which is the Indus Entrepreneurs, these are people who have been there, seen it, done it, sold it, and they're here to help. So I've been very involved with them for the last couple of years, organising their big annual flagship conference here in Pune. Yes, we just did one in April 2018, where we ran it for entrepreneurs. We run mentoring sessions. We run programs where we nurture entrepreneurs to become bigger. And we put them in front of investors. We put them in front of people who have really made it, who have sold their businesses for $200 million, $300 million. And those are the people who are giving all the entrepreneurs advice free of charge.
What more can you ask for?
So, and I really believe in giving back. I think we need to enrich the ecosystem. So the business ecosystem is not just about selling and an idea. It's about how do you deal with your people? How do you communicate with the market, articulate your vision? And that's what we're here to do, to enrich that ecosystem, to help companies thrive instead of survive.
Absolutely impressive. Totally.
Thank you.
So what's that one inspiring message you would like to give across to the women out there who are watching you?
So I always go back to nature. And if you take a seed and you put that seed in the ground and it's covered, it's dark, it's cold, and yet it grows, it explodes. So the first thing is, that's how women are for me. It doesn't matter what circumstances you put them in, they will grow. Drawing up water, food, nourishment from anywhere in order to grow. Women don't like doing that. Women generally are like, I can't ask for help. And what I'm saying to you is ask for help. It doesn't matter that some people will see you as needy or weak. They're the wrong people. You need to go out and you need to find strong people and ask for help. I rely on my maids. I rely on my mum. I rely on my friends. I rely on so many people around me to support me. I'm going through my authoring journey at the moment. I've got my first book coming out in November. There's a whole writers' community of women who are supporting me and I'm supporting. So keep asking for help. Find your tribe. Find those people who are going to push you up, not pull you down. And those ones who are pulling you down, just get rid of them from your life as much as possible.
Really need to go away.
They need to go. And just remember, more than anything, you are remarkable and you can make a difference. Just keep believing in yourself.
I'm going to take up that advice, and that was really straight from heart. Beautiful message by Vandana. Thank you so much, Vandana. It was a great honor and pleasure to have you here. Hear your thoughts. They really, really inspired me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Shweta, for the opportunity.
Thanks. Our pleasure. So stay tuned with Mumam TV for more powerful stories. Thank you again.